Hey there, and welcome. When you think back to high school biology, you probably remember genetics as this super simple thing, right? It's all about dominant versus recessive traits, brown eyes win, blue eyes lose. But what if I told you the real story is infinitely more complex and honestly, way more fascinating? Okay, let's dive into this because nature rarely, if ever, works in simple black and white. Just think about it for a second. Why aren't people just one of two skin tones? Why do we see this incredible, continuous spectrum of color? Well, this very question is our doorway to a much deeper understanding of how our genes really work. It shows us that inheritance isn't always a simple one-to-one deal. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack all that complexity. We'll start by looking at how lots of genes can influence a single trait, then we'll flip that idea on its head and see how one single gene can cause all sorts of different effects. After that, we're exploring the super diverse ways sex is determined in the animal kingdom, and then we'll wrap it all up with a summary of these different systems. All right, first up, polygenic inheritance. This is the big idea that explains why so many of our traits, things like our height, our weight, and, skin color, don't just have two simple options. Instead, they exist on a gradient, a whole spectrum of possibilities. So what's the key takeaway here? With polygenic inheritance, the final physical trait, what we call the phenotype, isn't decided by just one winning gene. No, it's more of an additive effect. Think of each version of a gene, or allele, as casting a small vote. The more of these additive alleles you have, the stronger that final trait shows up. Let's make this really concrete and stick with our skin color example. Now, just to keep things simple, we'll assume it's controlled by three main genes, which we'll just call A, B, and C. The capital letters, the big A, B, and C, are the dominant alleles that add to darker skin pigmentation. The lowercase letters, little a, b, c, are the recessive alleles for lighter skin. So here we can see the two extremes. An individual with the genetic makeup, or genotype, of all capital letters, A, B, B, C, has all six possible darker skin alleles. This gives them the darkest skin tone. Then, on the complete other end, someone with all lowercase letters, A, B, B, C, has zero of those darker skin alleles, which results in the lightest skin tone. And this is where it all clicks. Every shade in between those two extremes is simply determined by the total number of dominant alleles you've got. So a person with the genotype ABC has three dominant alleles, right? That puts them smack dab in the middle of the spectrum with an intermediate skin tone. It's a beautiful example of a trait that's about how much, not just yes or no. All right, so we've just seen how a whole team of genes can work together to produce one single trait. Now, let's totally flip that concept. What happens when one single gene causes a whole cascade of different effects? Well, this phenomenon has a name. It's called pleiotropy. So think about it like this. If polygenic inheritance is a many genes to one trait relationship, pleiotropy is one gene to many traits. A single gene can actually influence several different physical traits that might seem totally unrelated. It's like a master switch that, when you flip it, sets off a chain reaction that affects multiple systems in the body. A really powerful, classic example of this in humans is the genetic disorder phenylketonuria. You might know it as PKU. It's the perfect illustration of pleiotropy, because just one single faulty gene leads to a whole host of problems throughout the body. And here's that domino effect in action. The mutation in that one gene leads to a defective enzyme, something called phenylalanine hydroxylase. This single biochemical problem then branches out and causes multiple, totally distinct symptoms, things like intellectual disability and also a reduction in hair and skin pigmentation. One cause, multiple effects. That's pleiotropy for you. Okay, let's switch gears and jump into another fundamental area of genetics, sex determination. As humans, we're really used to our XX and XY system. But it turns out nature has come up with several different and equally effective strategies for determining sex across the animal kingdom. First up, this system we all know best. As you can see here, humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. The first 22 pairs are called autosomes, and they're the same for everyone. But it's that 23rd pair, the sex chromosomes, that's the big decider. If you have two X chromosomes, you're female. If you have one X and one Y, you're male. Simple enough. But now, let's check out some insects, like grasshoppers. They use what's called an XO system. Females, just like in humans, have two X chromosomes. But look at the male. He's only got one X chromosome. The O in XO literally just means zero, showing that a second sex chromosome is missing. So in this case, it's the number of X chromosomes that determines sex, not whether a Y is there or not. Birds, they flip the script completely with what's called the ZW system. Here, the roles are basically reversed. The male has 2 of the same sex chromosomes. We call them ZZ. It's the female who has 2 different ones, Z and W. And this is a really crucial difference because it means that for birds, it's the mother's egg that determines the sex of the offspring, not the father's sperm. This brings us to a key term you should know, heterogamety. In systems like our human XY system, the male is called heterogametic. Why? Because he produces 2 different types of gametes, or sperm. Half carry an X chromosome and the other half carry a Y. The female, with her XX chromosomes, is homogametic, since all of her eggs carry an X. But what if sex wasn't about different types of chromosomes at all? Let's look at a really fascinating case, the honeybee. For them, it's all about the total number of chromosomes an individual gets. This system is known as haplodiploidy. Okay, this is just wild. Here's how it works. If a honeybee egg gets fertilized, it becomes diploid. It has 32 chromosomes. And boom, you get a female who'll become a queen or a worker. But if an egg doesn't get fertilized, it stays haploid with only 16 chromosomes and develops into a male drone. This process is called parthenogenesis, and it means, get this, male drones literally do not have a father. How crazy is that? So we've just covered a bunch of different ways that genetics can determine sex. Let's pull it all together now for a quick side-by-side comparison, just to see how they stack up. This table really lays it all out beautifully. You've got the familiar XY system in humans, the XO system in grasshoppers, where a whole chromosome is just missing, the ZW system in birds, where the female calls the shots, and the completely different haplodiploid system in bees, which is all about the total number of chromosomes. It's an incredible showcase of how creative evolution can be. So, what are the big ideas to take away from all this? First, polygenic inheritance. Many traits are the result of many genes all working together. Second, pleiotropy. A single gene can have a huge domino effect. And third, sex determination isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. Nature has evolved some truly fascinating strategies to get the job done. And I'll leave you with one last little brain teaser to think about. Based on everything we just learned about that ZW system in birds like chickens, who holds the deciding genetic vote for the sex of the chick? Is it the rooster sperm or the hen's egg? The answer might not be what you think. Thanks for joining us.